Your brother's not invited? Then we're not coming either. My mother's voice cracked like a whip across the table, and the room fell silent. My sister's smile, the one she had been practicing for weeks while talking about her wedding, shattered instantly. My brother leaned back in his chair, smirking, like the king of a kingdom built on ashes. Hi everyone, my name is Marissa. I'm 28 years old. Today's story is titled, If Your Brother's Not Invited, We're Not Coming Either. That's what my parents said about my sister's wedding after 10 years of defending him while he bullied us all. And now, they've lost all the kids they ignored for him. The words clung to the air like smoke. My sister, Evelyn, had just announced the happiest day of her life. She had chosen a venue by the river, soft lights over the water, a dress she'd been saving for since college. But in my parents' eyes, none of that mattered. What mattered was the son they worshipped, the boy they never stopped protecting, even when his fists, his words, and his cruelty had left bruises deeper than skin. I watched Evelyn's hands tremble as she gripped her fiancé's arm. This isn't about him, she said softly, but my mother's jaw tightened like stone. My father only added, family means everyone, or no one. Family. Such a beautiful word, twisted in our house into something sharp, something we bled on again and again. I felt my chest tighten. 10 years. 10 years of excuses, of hearing he didn't mean it, while we picked ourselves up off the floor of humiliation he left us on. 10 years of swallowing silence because our parents couldn't bear to see him for what he was. And now, at my sister's table, I realized this wedding wouldn't just be about love. It would become the battlefield where truth finally demanded to be heard. The chandelier flickered overhead, casting fractured light across our faces, and in that trembling glow, Evelyn whispered something that froze even my brother's smirk. I'd rather walk down the aisle alone than let him poison my wedding, Evelyn said, her voice steady though her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. The words cut through the tension like glass snapping, sharp and final. For the first time in years, my sister didn't flinch under their disappointment. My brother, Daniel, tilted his head back and laughed. Poison? You make it sound like I'm some kind of villain. His voice dripped with mockery, the same tone he used when we were kids, and he cornered us in the hallway just to remind us we were smaller, weaker, less. My mother slammed her palm against the table. Don't you dare talk about him like that. His family. It was again, that word. Family. As if it excused every scar, every humiliation. Every night Evelyn locked her door, and every morning I carried her silence with mine. Evelyn's fiancé, Caleb, finally spoke. His voice was calm, but there was steel beneath it. With all respect, sir, this is our wedding. Evelyn has the right to feel safe, to choose joy. If Daniel's presence endangers that, then endangers. My father's chair screeched as he stood. His face reddened. You think we'd ever allow a stranger to tell us who belongs in this family? I wanted to scream, but I stayed quiet. Years of watching the same storm had taught me silence was the only shield. Still, I glanced at Evelyn, and I saw it, her resolve hardening, her spine straightening. She wasn't going to fold this time. The chandelier hummed above us, its light swinging faintly as if the house itself trembled with what had been unleashed. Evelyn rose slowly from her chair, her voice low but unbreakable. If he comes, she said, then I won't. And the silence that followed was the loudest sound we had ever heard. The silence stretched so long that even the clock on the wall seemed to hesitate between ticks. My parents stared at Evelyn as though she had spoken a foreign language. My brother's grin faltered for the first time in years, his confidence cracking like paint under pressure. You wouldn't dare, my mother whispered, her voice trembling with fury. You'd ruin your own wedding just to spite us. Evelyn's hands rested on the back of her chair, knuckles white but steady. I'd rather start my marriage in peace than carry his chaos down the aisle with me. Daniel scoffed, leaning forward. Peace? You're so dramatic. You think one little shove, one stupid prank from when we were kids means anything now. Grow up, Evelyn. Everyone has siblings who tease them. Tease. That word stabbed me like a knife. Teasing doesn't leave bruises, doesn't strip confidence from your voice, doesn't make you afraid to walk into your own kitchen. Daniel wasn't a tease. He was a storm our parents pretended was sunshine. Caleb reached for Evelyn's hand, grounding her, his eyes dark with quiet rage. This isn't about childhood. It's about patterns. It's about safety. And if you can't respect that... His voice trailed off, but the implication was clear. My father's fists curled at his sides. You ungrateful children, he muttered. After everything we've given you, this is how you repay us? By cutting out your own blood. Blood. Always blood. As though DNA was enough to forgive a decade of torment. I felt my pulse in my throat, words clawing their way up. For years I had stayed silent, but something inside me broke. My voice trembled, but it carried. He's not the only one who remembers, I said. And if you keep forcing him into our lives, you're going to lose more than just Evelyn's wedding. My mother's face blanched. My father's jaw locked. And Daniel's eyes flickered, a shadow of fear he couldn't mask. My words hung in the air like smoke, curling into every corner of the room. For once, Daniel didn't laugh. He shifted in his seat, his smirk twitching at the edges as if he'd lost the script he always relied on. My parents turned toward me, their shock hardening into disappointment. You too, my father said, his voice low, dangerous. After all we've done for you, Marissa. I swallowed hard. Done for me? You mean the years you turned away while he mocked, shoved, and humiliated us? The nights Evelyn cried herself to sleep while you told her to toughen up? The times you told me I was overreacting when he broke my things just to see me fall apart? My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. He was a boy, she said coldly. Boys make mistakes. Mistakes. That single word shattered something deep inside me. Mistakes don't last 10 years. Mistakes don't follow you into adulthood like ghosts. Mistakes don't leave scars you can still feel when you close your eyes. Evelyn's hand squeezed mine under the table. I could feel her pulse racing, just like mine. Caleb's jaw flexed, his silence thick with fury he was trying to hold back. Daniel finally spoke, his voice quieter, but tinged with venom. You're both pathetic. Still crying over things that happened a decade ago. No wonder Mom and Dad side with me. At least I don't whine. My breath caught, but this time it wasn't fear. It was fire. No, Daniel, I said, my voice steady. You don't whine. You destroy. And they let you. The chandelier swayed slightly above us, its light fractured across the table like broken glass. Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes fierce. If you choose him over us again, she whispered, then don't expect us to be there at all. Not now. Not ever. The table shook with the weight of her final word. Ever. The word ever echoed through the dining room, sharp as the crack of thunder. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest as if Evelyn had physically struck her. My father's face went stone still, but his eyes betrayed him. Panic flickered there, buried beneath years of denial. You wouldn't dare cut us off, he said slowly, as if speaking to stubborn children instead of grown daughters. We're your parents. You need us. Evelyn stood taller. No, she said. We needed you. We needed you when he mocked us, when he broke us down, when he turned our home into a battlefield. We needed you to choose fairness, and every single time, you chose him. Daniel chuckled under his breath, shaking his head. This is ridiculous. You act like I ruined your lives. You're just weak. That's the real problem. I felt my body trembling, but I didn't hide it. Weak. My voice rose before I could stop it. It takes strength to survive someone like you, Daniel, and it takes even more strength to finally walk away. Caleb slipped his arm around Evelyn's shoulders, his voice calm but cutting. If parents can't protect their children equally, then they're not protecting at all. Evelyn isn't asking for revenge. She's asking for peace. If you can't give her that, we will build our own family without you. The chandelier above us buzzed faintly, one bulb flickering, casting half the table in shadow. It felt fitting, one side blinded, the other illuminated. My father's voice cracked. You'd abandon us over this? Over your brother? Evelyn's answer was steady, unflinching. We're not abandoning you. You abandoned us a long time ago. We're just finally admitting it. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his smirk gone, his fingers drumming against the table. For the first time, he wasn't the one in control. And in that silence, I realized the power had shifted. For once, they were the ones afraid of losing us. The silence that followed was unlike any we'd known in that house, not the silence of submission, but of consequence. My parents sat rigid, eyes darting between us as though they were suddenly outnumbered in their own home. Daniel's bravado thinned, his drumming fingers faltered. You think you can just erase us, my mother whispered, her voice cracking. Erase your family. Evelyn shook her head. We're not erasing family. We're drawing a line. There's a difference. Her voice carried the kind of strength that comes when pain finally hardens into truth. My father leaned forward, his fists pressed into the table. Without family, you'll regret everything. Don't think for a second that outsiders will ever care for you the way we do. Caleb's voice broke through, calm and resolute. You're right. Outsiders won't. But I'm not an outsider. I'm the man who loves Evelyn enough to fight for her happiness, even against her own blood if I have to. The room held its breath. For the first time, I saw my father falter, his mouth opening and closing with no words to bridge the gap. I leaned in, my pulse steady now. Do you know what regret really is? It's looking at your daughters and realizing you chose to protect the one person who tore them apart. Regret is sitting at a table and watching the children you ignored finally walk away. Daniel sneered, but his voice lacked its usual sting. You're bluffing. You'd never cut them off. You're too desperate for their approval. Evelyn's eyes flashed like steel catching light. Then watch me. The chandelier flickered again, shadows rippling over our faces like waves. And in that fragile light, I saw it clearly. The fracture in our family had grown into an unbridgeable canyon. And this time, we weren't the ones standing on the edge, begging to be pulled back. The air felt heavier now, as though the house itself understood what was unraveling inside it. My mother's eyes glistened, but instead of reaching for us, she clutched Daniel's arm tighter, as though doubling down on the choice she'd made long ago. My father exhaled hard, the kind of sigh that comes when pride refuses to bend. So this is it, he muttered. You're throwing away decades of family for one disagreement. Evelyn's laugh was quiet, but it carried a sting. This isn't one disagreement, Dad. This is 10 years of bruises, insults, and gaslighting disguised as love. This is every moment you turned your back on us because it was easier than facing him. Daniel's chair scraped loudly as he stood, his face flushed. You two are pathetic. Fine, go. See how far you get without them. You'll come crawling back when you realize no one else wants you. But there was no weight in his threat anymore. His voice was just noise, stripped of its power. I pushed my chair back, my hand steady as I rose. We don't need to crawl back. We've already stood up. My words were simple, but in them was every sleepless night, every silenced cry, every time Evelyn and I carried each other through storms our parents refused to see. Caleb stood too, wrapping his arm firmly around Evelyn. We'll build a family where love isn't conditional, he said softly. The chandelier flickered once more, and this time it went dark for a breath, plunging us into shadow before flaring back to life. It felt like an omen, the last warning before a final severing. Evelyn's voice trembled, but it didn't break. If you walk out of my wedding, you walk out of my life. And with that, the last string tethering us to their approval snapped. The night of Evelyn's wedding arrived like a quiet dawn after a storm. The river shimmered beneath soft lantern light, each glow reflected like stars fallen to earth. Music drifted gently, laughter weaving through the air, the kind of peace we had once thought impossible. There were empty chairs at the front. My parents never came. Neither did Daniel. Their absence wasn't a wound. It was a relief, a silence that allowed joy to breathe. For once, Evelyn's smile stretched without fear of being broken. I stood beside her as she adjusted her veil, her hands no longer trembling. Caleb waited at the altar, his face filled with a certainty that steadied the air around us. When Evelyn walked toward him, it wasn't just a wedding march, it was the sound of chains breaking. Guests whispered about the missing family members, but no one dared ask. They didn't need to. The truth was etched in our faces. We had chosen ourselves, chosen freedom, chosen to stop begging for love that was never given freely. Later that evening, as I stepped outside, the cool night air wrapped around me. The lanterns swayed gently, and I felt the weight of years lift. My parents had lost us long before this night, but tonight made it final. By defending Daniel again and again, they had severed their ties to all of us. Inside, Evelyn and Caleb shared their first dance. Her laughter rose above the music, light and unbroken. Watching her, I felt something I hadn't in years. Hope. I whispered to myself, almost like a vow. We are not defined by the ones who abandoned us. We are defined by the ones who stay. And in that moment, the story that had been written in pain finally found its ending.